The witch hunts in medieval times were brutal affairs that left many charred corpses in their wake. One such accused witch is who we see now, tied to an X-beam for execution with crowds shouting for her death. She corrupted their noble knights with dark magic and deserved to be purged from their sacred land. The wood beneath her is lit by a torch, and in mere moments, a blaze surrounds the young woman, lapping at her legs while people cheer for the demise. And now, we jump to the present, where Chiba Chiyore is looking to purchase a place of his own before starting school. His parents have already given their permission, and the sales rep asks for his budget and requirements. Ideally, Chiba would want something in the region of 30,000 per month for rent, but in Tokyo proper, that's probably a pipe dream. One that thankfully comes true for him, since there is actually a place with affordable rent. A furnished place with a rent of 20,000 yen that's apparently designer and all-inclusive. But there was a certain catch behind it. Certain rumors, one might say. The most unrealistic part is them warning him about this. Once they arrive and head upstairs, the rep tells him that it's got European-inspired elements, namely that the ceiling beams were crafted from imported timber. But there was more to it than that. Local legends say that the wood was salvaged from actual witch execution scaffolding, which is probably why the place was still vacant. Aside from that, an eerie person peers at the window Chiba looks from, staring right at him with a focused face. The rep informs him that this was common around the area, as was unexplained phenomenon. This property had a certain reputation, so to speak. But instead of backing out to go find other places, Chiba decides this is the one for him, and proceeds to take the deal despite the warnings, even going as far as saying to bring on the ghosts. He's not a believer in any form of spectral stuff. 1 week later, he eagerly brings his boxes into the apartment, excited to start his new life. A strange noise quickly catches his attention, the word kill being chanted over and over quietly. He shrugs it off as coming with the territory, and gets settled into his home for the day by playing some mobile games. By the time night falls, he's hearing the same voices more clearly, and soon gets fed up with them. Only, when he opens his eyes this time, he's face to face with a girl hanging from the ceiling. Two entities on either side are torturing her with whips, and of course, Chiba doesn't know what the heck is going on. But as soon as the entities are noticed, they seem to scream in utter pain and vanish. He, of course, thinks this is nothing but a dream. Quite a steamy one, and he plans to take full advantage of the fact. Uh-oh. Chiba is asked if he's the new Inquisitor, with the addition that no torture would shake her faith, thus he was wasting his time. Noble, unyielding eyes stare back at him valiantly, but instead of giving up, he, cops a feel. I'm going to skip past a lot of this because of its content, but he spends a good portion of the chapter feeling her up and even going under her shirt. He does ask if she'd be his girlfriend at one point, but with the glare of a disgusted woman, she simply says no. Something starts flowing into her body from him, power of a kind. I don't want to know what he's doing. But while mid-activity, he notices that she actually has a nice scent to her, and his brain suddenly clicks. Dreams don't have sense. This is reality, and suddenly, a light explodes from the woman's chest, dissolving the chains coiling around her limbs. She's now on the floor, kneeling to one knee in full armor, and not too pleased with the treatment she received. He had violated the body she'd consecrated to the divine. Her name was Holy Knight Marguerite, and by the power invested in her by whatever deity, she would give him his just reward. She summons her holy sword, which has several eyes and a mouth, and claims that she will purify his soul for the indecency. One stab later, and Chiba really clicks that this is reality, though there's no pain in him. His limbs go numb, and he hopes his browser history is wiped before he dies. Several days later, he's coming back from the store with a grocery bag, wondering how he's still breathing after having a sword put through him. He was starting to adjust to his new routines and school began soon. Maybe that experience was just a really vivid dream, or rather a really bad nightmare. Well, no, because Miss Knight is there holding a knife and welcoming him home. She had just prepared the curry, which is a word pun on curry, and says that this batch was her magnum opus. He begs her to just skip the cooking and ascend to the afterlife, but she can't do that because her holy sword got absorbed into him. She tries yet again to pull it out, but as you might expect, it's never that easy. he had survived its strike and assimilated the blade somehow. The both of them sit down at the table to eat, and it seems that Maru, the nickname Chiba gave her, has used no shortage of spices in the food. They apparently enhance preservation, though that was probably a centuries-old thing. We now learn that, on their first night together, his overwhelming spiritual energies were able to give Maru a physical form, but the exchange was her sword. That blade was worth more than her own existence, and if he wanted her to leave, he'd have to somehow get it unstuck. Until then, she wasn't going anywhere. Maru later watches some TV to learn about her new environment, picking up things from a drama show about school. Speaking of, we jump to Chiba as he's leaving class. A friend of his named Paris Knight invites him out to karaoke, but he's rejected because our boy goes home directly after to spend time with Maru. Paris keeps trying to push his luck, probably trying to turn Chiba's house into a hangout spot, but again gets turned down. He later arrives at the apartment to be welcomed back by Maru, who asks if he's found any good comrades. Short answer, no, not yet. They were all idiots, and he only chose this school in particular to get away from his hometown. Hanging around with the other kid like Paris was just a waste of his time. He also mentions that while she's been persistent, there was no progress involving the sword being removed, so she might as well give up on it and move on to the afterlife already. Maru doesn't take this lightly. She gets up into his face and says that she'll just kill him right now then, and drag the blade from his corpse. Let's not forget that she's not exactly the pinnacle of modern etiquette. Chiba is having none of this and manages to slip out of the door, bolting across the street and deep into the city. He mentions that this place was nothing like that countryside he came from before accidentally waltzing right into someone's back. The apology falls on deaf ears because the person is, for lack of a better word, a hooligan. One that orders him to pay 500,000 yen. Roughly $3,440 as of writing, to clean the suit of a water stain? Guess it's the principal. Chiba is then on the floor of an alleyway, probably having been punched and abused by the older man, who says to consider this a lesson of what happens when adults are messed with. He takes the wallet, which contains Chiba's living money, and Maru asks from above if he's going to fight back. Doesn't he feel like standing up for himself? Well, of course he wants to, but doing that to someone when you have zero chance of winning, it's something only idiots do when they don't think. This wasn't an era where guts and determination solved everything. Though while the wallet is searched, another person enters from the other side of the alley, blocking the adult's path. Paris orders the man to give the wallet back, but for his troubles, he's clocked onto the floor by a strong right. He's not one to give up easily, no matter how hard he's hit across the jaw. Maru asks if Chiba knows him, and yeah, they share the same class in school. But he blew Paris off every time. Why would the guy fight for his sake? Paris yells that this money supported Chiba and his so-called sister, with Maru remarking that he does exactly what the boy considered stupid, all in an effort to protect his friend's livelihood. Was this what he called a fool? The gangster finally lets up and agrees to give Chiba his wallet back, but in exchange, Paris's money was his now. Our boy won't let this happen though, to the point of tackling the goon and knocking him off balance. Both boys are swatted away, but this is where Maru steps in and senses something new. The holy blade is loose, to the point she can draw it from his chest. One quick slash later, and the bad boy is sent flying across the alley, landing in a crumpled heap on the floor. He's not out for the count, but he does feel like death just invited him to a tea party. Ignoring what he stepped in, two massive men behind him are happy to see him. So happy that they drag him away by the arms, while Maru is asked if her curse backfired in some way. The main takeaway is that the blade even came free in the first place, but before that, they need to worry about Paris and his memory of the event. Chiba thanks his friend for saving him, as it meant a lot, right before Maru slices through the boy's body. She severed his memory threads because he witnessed the holy sword's power. Back at the apartment, Chiba and Maru enjoy a meal at the table before she starts gathering up the dishes, wanting to do them since she's freeloading off him. Her ethics are intact at least. More importantly, he should finish off his homework, but while he's taking care of that, his phone buzzes. An alert of a suspicious person has been sent out to the school group for his class, depicting someone around 40 years old with a height of roughly 160 centimeters. For our American friends, that's 5 feet 2 inches. While he's fiddling with his phone, Maru says she's done cleaning and requests to take a bath first. He allows it, and once in, she admits that modern ones are much better than they had in her time. She climbs into the water after pouring something in, and while her guard drops for a split second, it comes right back up by instinct. She recalls that she was able to draw the holy blade from Chiba's chest, albeit it had lost any semblance of the power it once possessed. It was only once she approved of his actions that she could sense its radiance. Maybe her feelings were the key. Possible, but before that, the creepy man described before is caught in 4K leering at her through the window. Wouldn't you guess, it's the same one who was staring at Chiba on the day he toured the house. Yeah, that glass won't save you, pal. Not from this monster. He's flung all the way through the room by a single hand, slamming into our boy who is just trying to go to the bathroom. Maru then steps out and asks who he is, forgetting that she's only covered by soapy water. The man claims to be a Veer, and once Maru has some clothing on, the situation is explained. Peeping Tom that got caught out. Chiba is about to call the police when the man claims to be a researcher of evil spirits, saying he came here to help the boy out. The man proves this by knowing Maru isn't a living human anymore. Chiba gives his name when asked, and is told that his spiritual power is way too strong. Most normal spirits would evaporate just by being close to him. On the other hand, Maru didn't vanish from it, but rather absorbed it as fuel for her being. She was an extremely powerful special class of evil spirit, and if he stayed around her for too long, his aura would be tainted. The man asks kinda that Chiba let go of this room and come with him, but Maru straight up says no. If he tried to separate them, his life would become forfeit. The boy took something very important to her, and she must make him take responsibility. Even the creep is disgusted at the phrasing. Fortunately for YouTube, she means the holy sword, and until he retrieves it, she ain't leaving. Well, good news, there is actually a way to get it back. Bad news, it's called love. Chiba is instantly red in the face and nervous laughing, while Maru doesn't even consider it an option, wondering what to do since the holy sword will never be returned. Ouch. But there's another more serious hurdle to this. Time isn't on their side. According to the Veer's assessment, there is a time limit of 100 days before his spiritual power runs out. Remember, Maru is using him as a fuel source. If he runs out, she will lose her connection and pass on by force. The double-edged sword here is that she'd also have used every last drop of his spirit by then, which in the worst case meant death. The Veer then opts to leave and says that if they need his help, they could call anytime. He gets on his bike and off into the sunset he goes. We now jump to Yusa from Class 1B, the so-called top student in the school. As is quickly learned, she wasn't actually in first place, but second. The real first place declined to be the student rep for freshman year, so it got handed down to her instead. She runs into our boy at the lockers and asks if he's headed home already. While Yusa assumes him to be cool and composed, he's a nervous wreck who doesn't know how to talk to girls his age. He thanks her for taking his place in the entrance ceremony, because if he had remained the rep, it would have been a disaster. While she continues to fall in love with him, the harsh reality is that social anxiety would have ruined this high school life from day one if he'd taken the stand. Though, being possessed by Maru might be a worse fate, since, you know, it leads to a physical death instead of a social one. Yusa notices his sigh and asks if something is wrong, to which he asks her possibly one of the worst phrased questions I've ever seen, which I won't repeat for TOS sake. Suffice to say, he explains that he's going about certain things because his sister returned from abroad and they were living together, but there were things she refused to wear. Since Maru didn't know Japan, she didn't know where to shop for them either, so Yusa agrees to guide the woman around the next school break. They settle on the next weekend, which happens to be 2 days later, and Yusa arrives to find Maru in full knight armor while wielding a kitchen knife and fish head. Let's just say the first impression doesn't go as planned. Later, Yusa is helping Maru with the measuring tape and asks if she's only half Japanese. Maru was beautiful enough that the girl wanted to make a sketch of her. Chiba then gets spooked when the door opens, and Yusa says she'll take them to a cute select shop that she knows in the area. They arrive at quite a fancy place, making the boy feel awkward to be here. But when Maru says that she'd prefer something that could stop arrows like chainmail, she realizes that he can't wait outside for this one. In her time, there wasn't anything like modern women's garments, so she wasn't really used to it. But while Chiba is seemingly close with his fake sister, Yusa seems uneasy about their connection, frustrated even. Maru is a rival to her love for him, and once Yusa realizes this, she's all bubbly again. Then Maru comes out wearing some quite scandalous, clothing, if you can call it that. She's not allowed to try these things on in the store, and they end up having Chiba pick. Yusa is apologized to for seeing something so unsightly, but she brushes it off as having fun. She also comments that while he seems a bit unapproachable at school, he's actually a lively person. She was jealous that he's really close with his sister. Before he can correct her on that, Maru jumps in to say that they were indeed inseparable. After they pay an exorbitant price for the set she needs, Maru resolves herself to start a part-time job to help pay for living expenses. When it's brought up again at home and Chiba knows she's serious, he comments that she already does all the housework, so she doesn't need to worry about the rent. He'd take care of it. Though it wasn't for that, it was for something she saw on TV. A husky dog strap that extends its tongue when squeezed from both sides. Admirable that she wants to pay for it herself. If that was the case, then she might prefer looking through physical books rather than searching online. She'd prefer a job that pays immediately, primarily because she thinks the husky strap will be sold out soon if she doesn't get it. They search through the listings and find one for security staff, which she likes as protection is the true calling of a knight. For that, she needs to write a resume, which he'd help her out with. She doesn't want to do it herself, and he allows it, but after seeing the things she comes up with, she seems more like someone with middle school syndrome. She's called out for writing the truth, and once again, he has to pull her behind out of the fire. 3 days later, she's in formal dress and is told to do her best in the interview. This should be an easy task, considering the negotiations she faced in medieval times, and that mindset is a great thing to have. But that honesty factor comes back to bite her yet again, and come the end, it's a rejection. A few days pass since then, and the two of them practice every one of them for the next interview that Maru will attempt. She had 2 more interviews that day, but before he can think straight, she grabs him in a bone-crushing hug to say that she was told to come in and start tomorrow. Once inside, she shows off the finest bath salts she wasted money on to celebrate, and then her uniform, which is that of a restaurant. She thanks him for all his help with the resume and interviews, stating that she'd work like a demon come morning. Well, morning comes, and so does the devil in the details. She managed to cut a metal sink in half, and when asked how, she merely goes and demonstrates by doing it again. Now, as you can probably imagine, Maru is fired on the spot as this mess is all because of her. She remembers Chiba saying not to overexert herself to avoid this. To adapt to modern Japan, she has to hide her holy night powers. Her tears only add to the water as people rush around her, trying to stop the kitchen from flooding. Back in her night armor, she walks the streets of Tokyo proper and stops in at a little store to heal her wounded heart with a strawberry-flavored treat. Once inside, she finds a Yakuza-looking man pressuring the old lady in front of him to hurry up and pay the register. She's trying her best, but he's impatient enough to push her out of the way in front of Maru. Her instincts don't allow this sort of misconduct, and she grabs his arm, warning him once not to touch the lady with the strength to back it up. The man tries to punch, but, well, over the shoulder he goes. When he's able to comprehend what just happened and roll upright, he finds an umbrella directed at his nose. Maru gives him one more warning to leave, and this time, she's not joking about cutting him, or possibly worse. He finally takes the hint and scrambles out the door, leaving Maru to laugh a little since she showed off her abilities again. The woman thanks her and praises the knight for being kind, but Maru gently refutes it by claiming to be a fool. She couldn't control her power today and got fired from a part-time job. The old lady says that this might be fate at work and asks Maru if she'd like to work at their fish shop. Later, Maru is at home having gotten a husky keychain, and she hands it to him as a gift. It came in a set of 2, and she was hoping he'd accept this as rent money. Another day, Paris invites Chiba out for karaoke, wanting to invite Maru as well for the sake of it. Yusa also makes an appearance, wanting to know if she can join as well, and no objections are raised to the idea. Paris and her then share a thumbs up moment, meaning something more is going on. Later at the location, the 3 of them take a picture together, and Paris sets up the chat room between them. They do still want Maru to come, though as much as Chiba says that it's impossible, she actually does show up in the end. After she's corrected on the name of the tambourine, Yusa asks if this is her first time at an event like this. Apparently so, but not to worry. She studied proper etiquette. Once Maru has been taught how to use the karaoke system, Yusa starts off a song with her adorable singing voice, and soon the night stands up and, well, starts essentially roaring along with the lyrics. Yusa seems pleased, and Paris isn't about to be left behind in the energy, so he joins in the frantic happiness. Maru tells Chiba that this is the correct way to do karaoke. Sincerely doubt it, but then she's handed the microphone. She's not very confident in her voice, but is willing to give it a shot under the promise that nobody will laugh. She then proceeds to sing about the Soviet Union, which I'm not gonna go into. Without prompt, a bunch of old people come into the room from outside, and everyone starts dancing along with the night. You can certainly tell this is fantasy, but hey, they're all having a good time. Now, we skip to another day, where Maru and Chiba are walking back from a store, with him being glad she could buy what she wanted to. She had been really interested in a card game and duking it out with the neighborhood kids recently, often here in the park where, two kids have just lost a battle to someone looking like he's from the Yakuza. He would take their rare card as promised, but as he's reaching for it, you can guess who stops him. She would get their cards back for them. The absolute rule of the game is that the strong are justice, so she just had to beat him. He notices instantly that Maru ain't just a regular girl, but a warrior. And to that effect, she puts down the weakest card in the entire game. At first, he thinks she's just an amateur when her turn ends, but quickly backtracks since this might be a trap. Chiba tells the kids that she's weak though, since she only builds decks with cute cards. Maru continues to make a fool of herself by not doing anything with her turn, but the kids are hopeful that she might win through luck. She does partly redeem herself by drawing a card that deals an obscene amount of damage, but it's clearly hand-drawn and takes 100 times water attribute damage. Can you guess what Mr. Yakubro has on the field? A water type. She loses and is about to watch the man walk away with both her cards and her friend's cards, so she does the only thing she can think of in a panic. Cut through the guy's memories with the holy sword. Abuse of power much? She's about to do the same to the kids, but vanishes while chasing them. She's exhausted her spiritual power and got returned to her original spot in the ceiling, where she can stay for a while to reflect on her actions. Calling the Veer once more, Chiba is hoping that he knows a way to free her. He does, but it's not one that he can recommend. Manifesting Maru with his power is essentially shortening his own life, and leaving her like that might just be the best option he has available. But when asked what he would do, our boy says that he wants to know anyway, as he can't keep borrowing the holy sword. The Veer understands and reveals the proper method to be either a kiss or something naughty to do with her chest. Apparently, it's the most effective way to transfer the spiritual energies, and hey, one of those methods worked last time. But while Maru does ask him to make the kiss quick, he says that he's not going to free her yet. She ended up here because she's swaying her blade around recklessly. If she wants to come out of the roof, she would need to promise to show more restraint from then on. While she does try the approach of not taking orders from him, Chiba responds by exposing her most embarrassing side. He's going to read her original character sheets out loud to the torturers. Ignoring their spicy reactions, Maru eventually gives in and makes the deal to not be so hot-headed. With that out of the way, he steps up onto the coffee table and gives her a peck to the lips. One blinding flash later, and she's back on the floor in full armor, being incredibly embarrassed that he'd actually gone through with the threat. The next time the Veer is over for a checkup on Maru's health, and she has a temperature of 38.9 degrees Celsius. That's 102 Fahrenheit. Figuring out that she's got spirit flu from the change of seasons, rest and recovery is recommended. Maru is kindly asked to stay home quietly for a while to sleep it off, but she breaks out like a child and claims to have a card game played with the kids at the park. She says that you can overcome a cold with willpower, but our boy isn't so convinced. Once the Veer is off on his bike, Chiba offers lunch, which is rejected. Maru tries to say that he can go out and have fun, but he says that she can rely on him more and he won't leave her alone. She takes this as true kindness, but the truth is that he knows the instant he leaves, she'll sneak out to the park. She then complains about feeling sticky from sweat, but as it's not a very good idea to take a bath while having a fever, Chiba instead brings over a bucket of water and cloth so she can clean herself. He'll wait outside while she does it, but soon enough, she summons him to wipe down her back, since it's one of the spots she can't reach. He's a bit apprehensive at first, but gets to it after a short while. Once he's done with the task, he asks that she put her clothes on, but she falls to the bed before that can be done. He hides her body with the futon and goes to cook some food. But after a short jump to the Veer, who is concerned about her condition, we find Maru with a really hot fever huffing in bed, clearly in pain. We now jump far, far back to the year 1593. Many soldiers are headed towards a castle with the intent to slay the Imperial Witch. A sudden blast pushes them all back, killing the majority of their infantry instantly. Blood fills the floor as the Witch of the Black Sword, Marguerite of the Iron Serpent Knights, steps forth. More lambs are sent to the slaughter as soldiers continually rush the bridge. But with one more strike, she's called a monster. Wailing past corpses and dying people, an armored knight is holding up his crucifix and begging his god to deliver judgment upon her. A curse then creeps along her face and presumably body, forcing Margaret to the ground. When she wakes up, it's in front of her father, who feeds her an antidote, telling her what happened. The dedicated man nursed her back to health for 3 solid days without sleeping himself. Awaking from her dead sleep, she stares up at the ceiling before turning to her right and noticing Chiba asleep beside her. He'd been caring for her the entire time and wakes up to instantly be full of worry and ask about her fever. She thinks it's gone down, and he's relieved to that point. He'd gone as far as to cook a homemade meal for her as well, one that he's never attempted until that point. She is touched by his generosity and willpower. Once the flood is finished, Spirit Flu is brought up once more, and Maru points out that while in this room for the past few days, something else might have been drained by something. So the cause was likely someone else. Something in his living room desires power, and Chiba is quickly pulled through the wall by it, leaving Maru to chase after him and come up just short. He's thrown to the floor in front of someone who's in awe of his spiritual power and, well, not wearing anything save the bag over her head. This fire was also an illusion, with Maru banging on the door trying to get through. The chained-up woman claims that the flames are hot and she'd burn to death at the rate things were going. Chiba is about to give her what she wants, but Maru outright says that his power belongs to her. Add to that his lifespan shortening even more if he were to do this, and he's apprehensive about it. Putting aside the NSFW words that the two use to persuade him, the chained-up girl kicks away from the wall. And, well, I'm not entirely sure we can show any hint of this. Suffice to say, she takes his energies as she pleases, and after the burst of light is done with, Chiba falls to the floor as Maru enters the room. The newcomer names herself Basquion, Witch of the Key. She'd make him her very first servant. Once he's awake and serving the girl some hot milk, Chiba mentions that moving into an empty room without permission was a crime. She says that there's no way she'd do something like that, and would instead opt to brainwash the landlord along with all residents of this building. Maru warns that she was not going to accept this, as Basquion was a monster from her time that was said to devour humans. The Catwoman leans in and gives him a list of the 3 most delicious things according to her, right before nailing him in the family jewels. Of course, she's just joking, because humans smell so bad that there's no way she could eat them. Speaking of that, she won't take his life along with the spiritual energies, as she was a pro at this. The cat girl then sways the two of them to entertain her every day, in exchange for a possible clairvoyance potion. Chiba asks what serving is supposed to mean, but the moment he pulls out a feather duster, her cat side really shows. She goes wild for it, like an actual feline would, until she eventually has it. But upon getting bored, she sits back down at the nearby table and sips some tea, spitting it out from the heat. Really got a cat's tongue, huh?
Let's hit 3k likes on this video for a part 2. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. Also join our Discord server linked in the pinned comment so you can be notified every time we upload a new video. We also post all the names for the series we cover in our Discord, so make sure to join the server, but that's all from me. Peace out.